it's Tonkdonk here, welcome back to the video. Today I'll be showing you how to make this really cool walking mechanism called the STRANDBEEST. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So first you're going to want to get a block of your choice. Mine will be titanium in this situation. And then scale this titanium block that you have just placed, or whatever block you have just placed, to 1 by 1 by 13 in height. This is 13 studs tall. And then set your move at 2.5, set your rotate to 45 and place a block on the side of the beam. Using this block, scale it into the top of the beam and move it across to 13. Now place a 45-degree angled block just like that, set your scale to 0.5 and scale it and merge it just into this lower beam right over here, sort of creating a right angle triangle. Now just tidy it a bit up with that 0.5 scale, because you ideally don't want anything sticking out of those horizontal and vertical beams. Now you're just going to get a hinge and set your rotate to 90 degrees. Place one hinge on either side of the horizontal beam and just going to get your move tool and set it to 0.9. Now once you've done that, move it and select both hinges into this. So everything in the hinge is 0.1 sticking out of the block, excluding that yellow bit. Now place a titanium block, one on either hinge. And again, whenever I say titanium block, this is highly relative to what block you are using. Say if you were using plastic or metal, you would place a metal block. Now put a 6.5 rod just like this, and again scale this to 1 by 1 by 6.5. Just like so. Select all, mirror it, and the mirror tool will save you heap loads of time on this, otherwise you just build it manually. Now you just get another hinge, place it on this particular joint, use the move tool and scale that in. Now you're going to want to get yourself a block. And I'm going to place another one just like this. I'm just going to colour that one white so I can tell the difference. And that isn't necessary, but it'll come in useful just briefly. So you're going to scale this inner one to 1 by 1 by 8.5. Just like that. Now you're just going to select all, unselect the extra titanium block and mirror it across. As you can see, now we have 2 legs done and we've got just 2 more to go. So you're just going to want to scale this to the middle of the block beam, just like so, at this 1 by 1 scale. Now you're going to scale it to 11. Again, you can change the colour back to whatever it was prior to this. I'm just leaving it how it was, if I can. Close enough. Select all and mirror it over. Now again, because I hate finding the centre of blocks, I'm just going to move this so it's 22 in length. Now, using the centre of the middle beam, you're going to want to place a wheel just like this. Select it with the move tool and set your scale to 0.1. Now you're just going to move it back by 0.1. Now grab yourself a piston, place it on the top of the wheel, get yourself a block, place it on the top of the piston and scale it so it's not touching the tyre of the wheel. Now scale it out, place a block in the middle of the wheel block, scale that to 1 by 1 so it's in the middle and just scale it away. Now you're going to want to attach the piston to this block, so I'm just going to do it like that and scale that back. It doesn't matter how messy it is as long as nothing is touching the wheel besides the piston. Now you're going to want to scale that out and place 4 hinges in very specific points. So this one goes here, this one goes here. Now this one gets moved in by 0.9. And I have just messed up, just like that. Right, fixed. So now you just place a block, another hinge like here, and another hinge here. Scale this hinge in by 0.9, and then grab yourself a titanium block and set your rotate to 45. And place a block of titanium, again, or whatever block you are using, and just bring it to the center on that 1:1 scale. Make sure they all cross paths with this middle block, and for this one this hinge that you've scaled by 0.9, just scale it in by 0.5 so it doesn't collide with that beam over there. Same with over here, just place another beam, scale it down. The length of this doesn't matter, you can just clean it up whenever you want. If it sticks out too much for your liking, then you can do that. Then place another one over here, this time making it 0.5 flat, just so it doesn't collide with the final beam that's over here. Scale it like that. Now take your beam that you have made that goes across all of those, scale it to this final block, and place a hinge on that block from the beam that was previously there. So if you can just do it like that, scale this block in by 0.9, place another hinge on that hinge, so you can see this beam is individually attached to this hinge and this beam is individually attached to this hinge, and the same will go for every single hinge that we place. Now you're going to want to set you place another block just on this hinge, just like so. Now you're going to want to scale it to 0.5 and now bring it out by 0.1. Place a hinge on the end of that block, just like this, and place another hinge on that hinge. Actually, I messed that bit up. Place another block on that hinge, and then finally clean that up by making it 0.5 by 1:1. If I can set this to 0.5, just like so, and then attach it finally up with a hinge just over here. If I can place it like that. Now place your final block to connect it all up like this. Again, as long as that's not touching that wheel, you're completely fine. Now each beam should be on their own hinge, which it is on this side. Now if you want to only make one set of legs, which is perfectly fine and it's much cheaper than use two wheels, I'm just going to use a second wheel for a guide, but in this instance just keep the second wheel and I'll show you what I mean. So set your wheel and bring it out by 0.1 so the tyre and the beam are no longer glitching out. Grab a piston, place it on the underside of the wheel, just like that. Now because I'm going to double up this walking mechanism, I'm going to remove this wheel, but if you aren't, just leave it. And with this, I'm just going to attach this block to the main block on the wheel, so just make sure you attach it without it colliding with any of the beams, otherwise it will break the whole machine and it won't walk. So just use your scale tool to maybe get it round. This bit does not need to be precise, as long as it just gets this piston attached to the wheel. So 0.1, and then I'm going to place another block. Now this block needs to be non-collision, just so as it rotates it doesn't doesn't get blocked by that beam. So that is not colliding with that, that's great. And now just hook it up to the wheel, like so, and just turn that to collision off. Now you're going to grab yourself a block and place it on the block over here just to get a center reference. I'm going to set my move to 0.5. Or in this instance I was being a bit stupid, you could have just placed a block on the top of the piston. Now that's centered, do the 0.5 by 0.5 scale under here. So just place a block and place a block here, 0.5 by 0.5 or 1 by 1 I mean, and just make that beam centered like so. Then you're going to attach this like how you did on the other one, making sure it just does not collide with that, just because you want this to be free flowing, and you also want this to not be colliding with anything. So you want this piston to be solely attached to the wheel. So you're going to want to attach that to the beam and make the beam come out. And again, place your 4 hinges on those very 4 specific points. So one here, and I'm going to set my rotate back to 90 really briefly. One here, one here. This one goes in by 0.9. One over here. And one over here. Now you're going to set your rotate back to 45. Place a block over here at 45 degrees and scale that in. Again, with this you can just clean it up after if you want to. I'm not going to bother, because as long as it's functional, it's great. So there we go, place another beam like that, and this is just the exact same on the other side. Just like this, and then the final one just like this. And that is done. Now take your beam again, scale it back, and just place the hinges as you did previously. So grab your hinge, place it on the beam if I can. This is going to be a bit tricky, so I'm just going to scale it out a bit like that, place it like that, and this is when I'm going to set the scale back to 90 because I don't need to do anything else. Scale that back by 0.9, and as you can see it's not touching the beam over here, at least not any of the important bits, and I am making a huge mess up of this situation. But again, as long as it works. So as you can see, that beam's not touching that hinge over there, this beam isn't touching that hinge over there. Now I think because I've made it a bit weird, yep, this is almost correct. I'm just going to bring that forwards by several 0.1s, like that, and I'm just going to place a block over here of titanium just to connect that up. Scale it down to that 0.5 scale. Just to clean it all up. And bring it back. Now I'm going to place the final block. Just like so. And then the final hinge. And then I lied, this is the final block. So that's all done. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select your wheel, set it to reverse spin, set the torque to 10, set your wheel speed to 10, or set the torque to max and wheel speed to 10. 10 I find is the maximum for something at this scale. You can just scale it up and then it might handle better speeds, and I found it does, but you just need more friction. So first, to deal with the friction issue, grab a piece of rust, because rust other than wheels is the best block for friction, and you're just going to want to place one of these rust feet on each on each one of the actual titanium feet. Now it doesn't need to be anything massive, it can just be a 0.1 slab on each one of the feet, just like so, and then the final bit over here. Actually no, that's not the final bit. Place this bit over here. Now you're just going to want to get yourself your pistons. Oh wait, no, I'm missing a foot. Impatient much. Right, that is done. Now select your pistons. Now I advise for a base layer set it to 3 in length. Speed doesn't matter, that's just the setup speed. Now here's where you save and just test everything. So load. Now how to test is all you need to do is unanchor, and as you saw I moved it off the ground a little bit. Now grab yourself a switch, disconnect the wheel from the switch, or in the instance that you have two wheels, the two wheels, just disconnect them, and you can see it should set up something like this in a sort of crab-like looking thing. Now the higher you set the piston, the longer the strides. It may break if you go over a certain limit, and the smaller you set the pistons, the smaller your strides will be. So load. Now if you've got one wheel and you're going to double it up, which I again recommend, select all and just clone it to wherever you want. Now I advise cloning it 16 to the side because that's just generally the spacing you have between each one of those things, or in this instance 32, and then just connect them up wherever. It doesn't need to be pretty, so I'm just going to connect them like this. And that is all done. Now just make this block collision off. Place a seat in the middle. Now this bit you can just make a cabin or just a general area, and you can make it look as nice as you want. I'm just going to leave it with this wheel in the middle of the chair. Now you're going to want to disconnect both pistons from the chair. In fact, you want to disconnect everything from the chair. Now for binds you can use QEAD or WAS or WAD. WAD I find is typically harder to deal with, so I'll show you how to do both, but I'll show you the difference between both. So for those who like WASD controls, you're going to want to set your forwards to W, set your backwards to D, and with this wheel you're going to want to set your forwards to W and your backwards to A. Now you're going to want to place a switch, and that can go wherever, and this will be your setup switch. Now you're going to want to save, load, and unanchor. And now if you were using two wheels, the binds would be just the same, except with the right wheel and the left wheel being individual of themselves. So as you can see, when I press the W, A and D, they all move, but nothing happens. So you need to press the switch to engage it all, press W, and it should work perfectly smoothly. So again, W is forwards, A is backwards on that side, and it makes you turn left, and D makes you turn right. But as you can see, that's pretty slow. So if we reload, I'll show the QEAD, which again takes a bit of getting used to, but once you actually get used to it, it becomes way more smooth and far better to use. So disconnect both of those wheels, go E for forwards on the right wheel and D for backwards on the same wheel, and then with this one, Q for forwards and A for backwards. Now I'll unanchor. And the reason why this method works so much more smoothly is because you can control each wheel individually, when on the other build, you were relying on the turning being completely on one wheel reversing like this. Now you can control both wheels at the same time. Now you might want to do a slightly slower speed to change the handling. And again, I'll show you what happens if you change the pistons. So let's say I want piston length of 1. Just double click the switch. And then you can see very small strides, but it works just as well. And again, if I wanted to set them to, say, I'm going to go 6 because I don't know if this whole thing can handle 6 or 10 even. You can see that for some reason I cannot click the switch. There we go. But you can see, oh, did I not do it right? Piston speed, now I set to 6. Piston length, set to 6. There we go. Reselect it. And now you can see it's a lot wider and it's a lot weirder, and I didn't think something at this scale could handle 6. So I think the maximum of this scale it could handle is probably 5. So let's try 5. Like this. Yeah, 5 seems to be a bit weird, but as you can see it's a lot smoother, the strides are much wider, and I think we could actually fight the water even at 5 speed, which is something you can't do. Right, very slowly fighting the water, but it's fighting the water nonetheless. Anyway, that's it for the tutorial. Thanks for watching, and Tonkdonk, bang!